Um, so I'm Willie Nickerson. I'm the chair of Natural Resources Conservation Council. This is the second meeting that I've been chair. So I'm still figuring out my role. And I hope you'll give me some patience as I do. I am a board of supervisors from Caledonia County, and I'm representing the Northeast District of Caledonia, Orleans, and Essex.
Thank you, Ellie. I'll go through and call on folks online to get started, and then we'll do a round of introductions here in the room. So Kate.
Yeah, I'm Kate Willard. I'm a supervisor on the White River NRCD, and I was just recently appointed to this board to represent the Winooski and the White River districts, which are joined together as the supervisory union.
Thank you, Kate. Travis?
Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Travis Thomason, State Conservationist for USDA's Natural Resources Conservation Service in Vermont. Good to see everybody.
Good to see you, Travis. Kathleen?
Wait, okay. Kathleen Swanson from South Hero. I'm a member of the Grand Isle County Natural Resources Council District and just recently joined, and I'm happy to participate.
Well, welcome, Kathleen. Glad to have you here.
Thanks.
John?
I'm John Roberts. I represent the Otter Creek Conservation District. And it's nice to see everybody, including Travis.
Welcome, John. Bill?
Bill Manor, I'm chair of Ottaquechee NRCD and also the alternate for the Southeast Union.
Good to see you, Bill. Linda?
Linda Course, chair of the Windham County Conservation District, Southeast rep to this board.
Thank you. Corey?
Hi, I'm Corey Ross. I manage the Windham County NRCD, and I'm one of 2 elected district manager representatives.
See you, Corey. Jill?
Hi, Jill Inglis, Agricultural Grant Program Coordinator here at the DEC. I am sitting in for Marley Roop today.
Good to see you. Emily?
Hi, Emily Newmer. I'm the Agriculture Programs Manager with Council and BACD.
Thanks, Emily. Molly?
Hi, everyone. Molly Varner, District Manager with the Grand Isle County Conservation District.
Thanks, Molly. Katie?
Hi, all. Katie Stiles, District Manager with Rutland Natural Resources Conservation District.
Good to see you, Katie. Jess?
Hi, everyone. Jess Miller, Grants and Finance Manager for VACD and NRCC.
Thank you. I think that's everyone online. Did I miss anyone? Okay, well, we'll go through a round of introductions here in the room. Good to see everyone. My name is Claire Ireland. I'm serving as the administrator for the State Natural Resource Conservation Council. So you'll hear a lot from me today, but I'll pass it off to Julia.
Hi everyone, Julia King, Communications Manager for VACD and Council, and also the Vermont Agricultural Water Quality Partnership and Coordinator.
Julia? Ethan?
Sure, yeah, good afternoon everyone. I'm Ethan Swift. I'm the Watershed Planning Program Manager here in DEC, and so I help to oversee the basin planners who work closely with a lot of the districts. And once upon a time, I actually served on the board of the Poultney Meadowy Conservation District, but that was back in the early aughts when Marley was the district manager.
Oh, wow.
So just to date myself a little bit.
Well, thank you for being here.
Yeah, good to be here.
Mary?
All right, good afternoon. Mary Montour. I'm here from the Agency of Agriculture, and I'm a program coordinator. I work mostly with VACD, NRCC, and districts through our Ag Clean Water Initiative program, so a little familiarity there.
Thanks, Mary. Chris?
Hi, everybody. I'm Chris Callahan with UVM Extension, where I'm the interim director.
I'm Michelle Monroe. I'm the executive director of the Vermont Association of Conservation Districts.
Well, that's everyone. Thank you everyone for being here today. I really appreciate it. We may have some others trickling in throughout the meeting. If so, we might have them introduce themselves, but Willie, we do have a quorum.
Did you want to clarify who the voting members are?
I guess I will clarify who the voting members are just for everybody, for the record, for everybody here. So our three agency representatives here in the room, I believe Ethan, Mary, and Chris will be serving as voting members today. And then for our district representatives, I have Kate for the Central Supervisory Union. I have Linda, of course, for the Southeast. I have Willie Nickerson for the Northeast. And then Bill, you're the alternate, so you will not be voting unless Linda steps off the call. And then for the Northwest, Kathleen, I understand you're representing Grand Isle. Happy to have you here as the SU rep today. Is that something you're prepared for and have the support of the supervisory union for?
I don't know. I think I do, right, Molly? I don't know.
Yes, you are the rep for Grand Isle County, but we are meeting next week with the other districts in the Northwest, or not next week, the June 10th, to kind of go over the supervisory union now that Richard has stepped down. So I don't know where that leaves us, but we haven't officially elected one representative for the Northwest.
Okay. Well, I think for the purposes of today, if you want to just listen in, feel free to participate in discussion. I'm happy to have your input, but we do still have a quorum without the Northwest as an official voting member today. And then the other question I would have then is for John Roberts, who you are from, I believe, the South Central Supervisory Union, and I know there was. I'm not quite sure if you've had the chance to meet to be elected to the supervisory union.
I don't know that either, actually. So I probably should double check. As many of you know, Otter Creek has not been as robust a district as we are hoping it will be. So I cannot guarantee that our current DM has made the right approaches to the right people. So I will check into that. I will abstain from voting today, just because that's probably clearer.
Well, I see Katie has her hand raised, probably to clarify, but I will say, I don't think this falls on Pam. I think this falls on me. I was going to be working to help get a meeting together for your union, and that has not happened yet. So, Katie, do you want to add to that?
Yeah, thanks so much, John. I really appreciate you being here today. I do have a board member, Todd Cook, who's interested in supporting our supervisory union. So I was out on maternity leave for the past few months, so I think the ball kind of got a little bit dropped by a few of us. So I'm hoping that we can reconnect in the next month or so and sort that out. I think that we could definitely come to an agreement with a primary rep and an alternate between you and Todd. So between Claire and I will be in touch. But thank you for being here today, John. I appreciate it.
Sounds good.
And I also really appreciate it. And I just want to note that even in the absence of Kathleen and John here as voting reps today, we do still have a quorum. And I would welcome really any comments. And if we do get to a point where there's a really contentious, anything contentious that we're talking about, we can try to work through that, in terms of the votes. But Yes, thank you for being here today. Okay.
So Claire, could you just go through that again? Who the voting members are? It's me, Linda, Willie as supervisors, and is that right?
That's correct. You, Linda, and Willie as supervisors, and
Yep.
then our 3 agency folks here in the room.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, so first item of business on the agenda is to review and approve the February meeting minutes. Can I get a motion to approve? Because first, has everybody had an opportunity to read the minutes?
I'll make that motion.
And we have a motion from Linda to approve the February meeting minutes. A second?
I'd have to go back and look at them again. To be honest with you, I'm having a hard time finding all the stuff for this meeting because they seemed like they came in different various messages.
I have recently found the Google Drive folder. Kate, do you use Google Drive at all?
I do, but I'm not really sure.
Let me drop that in the chat. Well,
You'll
we're
have
going
to
to drop
explain to
the
me
meeting.
the relevance of that. I'm not sure what you mean.
Oh, all the documents for the meeting are in the Google Drive for the Natural Resources Conservation
Oh,
Council.
you mean go to the webpage for council?
Julia is going to drop the link in the chat.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
So Julia is going to drop the link in the chat. If you need to access all of the meeting materials together, you should be able to go to that link and find them together. I do apologize. They were sent out in a series of emails. I'm happy to resend anything if you'd like, or share my screen.
Meanwhile, I'll second. So we
No,
can
I
get
don't
into
really
discussion.
want to share a screen, nor do I want them resent. But are you saying that I should be able to find them on the? I'm not even. Yeah, I don't know. Would I be able to find them on the webpage?
Yeah.
So on the webpage, we just have the agenda, Kate, but there's a Google Drive for all council materials, and there's subfolders for the different meetings. And we've shared out these links before, but I can share out a how-to guide again so everyone knows where to find them and then has handy links to access them.
Well, shouldn't the minutes be on the webpage?
I'm sorry, the minutes are on the webpage. I was talking about all the materials for today's meeting, but the minutes are on the webpage.
Okay, well, that's what I'm trying to find right now. I don't see it on the webpage.
If you go to the meetings tab,
that's where I am.
Scroll down to the date of that February meeting.
Yeah, all I see is Finance Committee Board meeting, June 2024.
So there's the February 26th NRCC board meeting. The draft meeting minutes are there. They're all in date order. So the finance and the board are all in date order together.
February 27th, you're talking about?
February 26th.
It says 27.
Different page, maybe.
Well, when I see Thursday, February 27th, but I don't see a year, so I presume that's this year.
I'm going to share my screen so everyone knows that what we're all looking at.
No, I'm on the wrong year. Okay, 2/6.
Okay.
There we go. I got it.
It seems to be taking its time. So if you go to meetings And then you scroll down, they're all in date order. So the finance and the council meetings are all together in date order. And we have the February 26, 2026. We have the draft meeting minutes. I'm not going to click on it. It will open up a PDF. But all the minutes are on there. And again, I'm happy to create some more how-to guides to find all the documents. I know as we've moved to the state system, some things might have gotten confusing. So I can make quick links for all of these and then we have some newer board members so they can find them.
So we have a motion to approve from Linda.
Chris seconded.
I'll second the motion.
Chris seconded.
Get into discussion on minutes if
Yep.
there is.
Thank you, Chris. Is there any discussion on the minutes from February?
On page 5, on the motion that Nina had made concerning the mortgage language, I don't believe that roll call vote is accurate. I think everyone should check how they voted because I recall Linda voting no. So, and it says she voted yes. So I think we should all check how people voted on that.
Okay, so there's no page numbers. 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, I think I recall voting no on the amendment to that motion as well.
Okay.
But so the roll call vote, it says the main motion as amended passed on a roll call, and that's accurate. I think that is accurate. I remember everybody voting yes. The motion is on page 4. The last 2 sentences on page 4, and
Okay.
that one says it passed on voice vote, and there's no recording of who or how people voted on the motion.
Mm.
Yeah, because I remember that most of the supervisors, except for Richard, voted no on requiring that we ask for the governor's approval or the state's approval for seeking the mortgage language change. I do remember that. So we may want to clarify that in the minutes in some way. There was a roll call vote there.
I think because not everyone who made a vote during that meeting is present today, we might need to go back to the recording of the meeting to double check the accuracy of the roll call. I don't have a way to check that right now, unless maybe I could do that during the break during this meeting and see if there need to be amendments at that point. But I do have a note that we need to check the accuracy of that.
It was an involved discussion. I remember
was.
it being tough to follow.
Yep.
Yeah.
Willie, would you like a motion to table minutes?
Would that be with the
I
expectation
can
that
I'll withdraw my motion to approve the minutes till we can get this sorted out. I'm sorry I didn't catch that, and especially if it involves that the minutes don't accurately reflect my vote, but it was a pretty involved discussion. And it was 3 months ago. But
I just
so go ahead. Who was going to speak?
I was going to note that I will look and double check the accuracy of that roll call. But I guess while we are discussing the minutes, if there's anything else that needs to, if anyone saw any other issues, or if there's anything else we need to change, it would be good to know.
I think I need to be added to attendance.
Okay.
Unless I'm missing it. Quite a list.
Yeah, you're under voting members.
Under attendees. That's not.
Oh, you're not under attendees. Okay.
Okay. Chris. Okay, we'll add Chris and we'll check the motion.
So do we have a break? What, would it be okay to bring this back up after the break?
That would be my goal.
Okay.
Okay.
So Linda withdrew her motion. I'll look for a motion to approve the minutes when we come back after our break. And we'll move on to item 3 on the agenda, core services update.
All right. Well, I'm going to share my screen to get into this. This item relates to our annual appropriations that come from the legislature, go to the Agency of Agriculture, and then get, it comes to us as a grant, and then we distribute the bulk of that to districts in an annual award. I apologize. I just realized I'm not joined into the meeting.
Do you want me to share it? Which
that would be
file is
great.
it?
It's the core services budget deliverables.
Okay.
Thank you. Well, I'll just get started while Julia pulls this up. This year, we're expecting to get a total of $912,000 in core funding that is not approved yet. We are waiting approval of the state budget. Right, we don't expect that amount to change based on where we're at in the budget process. So what I would be seeking today is approval of the budget, subject to state budget approval. And the reason I'm bringing this to you now is because it usually takes us a little bit of time to develop agreements and have those ready for the start of the fiscal year, and make sure that we are able to sort of off the back of this develop personnel agreement for council. So this does feed into council's staffing. So the second page here gives the budget breakdown. We've had about the same percentage breakdown over the past couple of years. This year's proposal, extremely similar to last year's proposal in terms of that breakdown. 88% would go to districts, and it would result in $57,000 per district under their core services award. We would retain 2% for supplies and expense, less than 1% for per diems for participation in these meetings and finance committee meetings. 6% goes into council staffing, mostly supporting my role and Julia's role in facilitating these meetings and other sort of back-end administrative work for council. And then 2% of the award would go to support what we call our district manager representative positions. So Corey is here today serving as the district manager rep. This is a position that gives district managers the ability to engage at the state and sometimes national level in a representation role, and also to work directly with VACD and council on statewide projects and initiatives. So that would be the budget breakdown. I put out a little bit of justification off to the side, but I'm happy to take questions on the numbers, and then we can go back to talk about some of the deliverables. Linda.
Claire, being a little picky, I think you said that the district manager leadership is 2%. I believe that's 3%. Or am I on the wrong line?
It's 2% for FY27. It was 3% last year.
I'm sorry. Sorry. Should be looking at the green, not the white. Thank you.
No worries. And
don't know why. I like green. I should have been looking at the green.
No, thanks for that question. And for this line item specifically, the reason it was reduced is in part because of just the overall amount of the grant agreement went up, and we did not the amount of this line item was reduced slightly, and that's because those agreements have been under budget for the past 2 years. So this, I think, is just a more accurate reflection of what we expect for that role.
Whoops.
Are there any other questions? Linda?
Sorry. Hopefully I'm in the right section this time. Just out of curiosity, I think later in the meeting we're discussing different appointments and stuff to different subcommittees and things. Where do per diems or pay for that come under? Is that under the per diem section, or where would those kinds of things come?
If the appointee is a supervisory union rep or a supervisory union rep alternate, then they would be eligible for per diem, and it would come out of that line item. However, our current appointments are not supervisory union reps, and so those costs and expenses would fall under either existing personnel agreements or would be unfunded.
Okay. Thank you.
So Claire, looking at the agenda, it looks like you're hoping to get a vote on the budget and the deliverables separately. So would you?
We could, I did list them as separate. We could discuss the deliverables before doing a vote on either. They are a little interrelated, but I would look for a separate vote for one for the budget, one for the deliverables. Yeah.
Why don't we review the deliverables and see if there are any more questions, and then we can move on to looking for a vote.
That sounds good. So on page 1 of this document, it outlines the deliverables under the agreement. So this money is supposed to support district general operations, and in particular meeting certain legal requirements and being able to do things like host board meetings, run elections, etc. It also supports them in being able to meet some obligations outlined in our statute, like providing us with financial reporting. So the proposal for FY27 is to maintain all of our standard deliverables, which include the FY26 financial reporting, FY26 program results reporting. There are 2 items I actually forgot to list here, and that would be an FY27 budget and FY27 work plan. So that would be a little forward looking, but that's been historically what we've done for many years. So that's not a new deliverable. District elections result reporting. So every year districts do send us copies of the legal notices they post, as well as their election results. This year we were proposing 2 new deliverables. This first one we discussed last year, but did not get approved due to a potential conflict with our Ag CWIP award. We are bringing it back again. It still has approval of district managers, and this would be for districts to all conduct at least 1 local work group meeting. And a local work group meeting is a meeting that is part of a process that is tied into the NRCS system. Travis, I'm sure, can speak to this a little bit as well. But this is it's a process that might otherwise go unfunded unless we actively seek funding sources for the entire process. And we're proposing to use core services funding to support this one specific meeting, one local work group meeting that every district would hold. It's sort of a natural resource assessment, community assessment of natural resource needs. I'm happy to answer questions about what that means specifically, but that's one deliverable. And then the second deliverable would be that every board conduct an annual performance review of their district manager. This is something that district council has required in the past. In the past, under this agreement, council has required, it's sort of, we've used it as a way to require something different every year. Maybe 1 year would be a conflict of interest policy, 1 year would be a procurement policy. We're returning to this deliverable because we've had a lot of growth in districts. Many districts now have more than one staff person and are in the process of reviewing pay and benefits, things like that. So this is something we're bringing to the table. It would require simply that boards do one annual review and notify us of sort of the results of that review. And we would provide some amount of guidance to boards around this. We do have, 2 years ago, we developed recommended salary and benefits for district manager position. So we have that updated, we've updated those numbers. We would provide those to boards as well as a suggested template for review, though I'm not recommending that we make that template mandatory. It would just be a resource to sort of ease the burden if districts are not already doing that. So those would be the deliverables for FY27. Any questions?
I have a comment on the local work group meeting. So I do know that we discussed this. Nina had looped me in before she had left, but I do still have some concern with the meeting itself. So I have a question. So is the meeting in this deliverable, is that the same as the meetings in Ag CWIP? Because Ag CWIP is funding 2 to 4 local work group meetings per district for the next 2 years. So we can't have it in both. So for example, if Caledonia hosts their local work group meeting on September 20th and they report it in Ag CWIP, it shouldn't also be reported here.
Our intention is not to double count those. And so if they do exist in our current Ag CWIP agreements, we would need to renegotiate that, I think. But usually most districts have a more extended process. So there's usually one local work group meeting that this would fund. And then after that, they may do additional meetings, or they may do a survey of their district constituents, and that would not be funded under this. And so I imagine our intent, at least, was to have all of those sort of extra steps be funded by Ag CWIP.
So I have a suggestion, because I don't think both can have number of local work group meetings. I know that's the easiest thing to count, but I don't think it can be under both agreements. And yes, we definitely acknowledge there's a lot more that goes on than just the meeting themselves. But I'm wondering if maybe in the core agreement could, instead of a meeting number, could it be like local fund pool proposal, or like conservation action plan up to date? Like, could it be one of those things? Because that's sort of the outcome of the meeting.
I don't have a recommendation from district managers to do that. I think we were viewing this, the local work group meeting itself, as being a core function of the districts, which conceptually makes sense under our core service agreements and is similar to how other states approach this sort of funding. I think that it gets a little tricky when we get into local fund pool proposals. We viewed that, I think, as a little more optional.
Yeah,
Corey's
got his hand raised.
Yeah, Corey.
Yeah, just, and I'm not saying council should or shouldn't decide to make this a requirement, but writing a conservation action plan is a pretty substantial undertaking in terms of staff time and resources. It's a much bigger ask, a heavier lift than just holding a local work group meeting. So we should just be intentional about if we're deciding, yes, definitively all districts should spend a significant chunk of their core appropriations on that task. And then I guess just to throw it out there, I don't believe all districts have an Ag CWIP award. Isn't that true?
No.
So everyone, I looked this morning and we are waiting on updated deliverables, but as far as our review group went, we were approved the local work group portion of the proposal, and all districts except for Grand Isle and Lamoille proposed 2 to 4, and Winooski actually had 10 proposed meetings in that proposal. So I do think we need to make sure that we're not, I mean, I understand that there's a lot more going on besides just the meeting, but reporting the same thing under both agreements is not ideal for us.
I think based on our conversation last year, we were hoping that we could split number of meetings into various sources. Part of the problem we have with the core services agreement is that it's not a ton of money, and it's supposed to support all of the other basic functions of the district. So as we started looking at some of the further steps in this process, the survey, the local fund pool proposal, we did not think that the core services amount was enough to cover that bucket of work. And so the one meeting was viewed as being sort of the basic deliverable, what we want everybody to do across the board, with the intention of using supplemental funds to go above and beyond, additional meetings included. So I think we'll have to figure out a way to.
So I think I see two sort of paths, keep it here in core, and then we need to discuss the Ag CWIP and adjustment of the deliverables there. So we could do that, or vice versa. And it seems like because this meeting is convened, maybe it needs to stay here and we need to rediscuss Ag
Yeah,
CWIP.
Mary, I'm happy to think about other things that we can include as part of this process in Ag CWIP. We didn't include the conservation action plan because I believe in the past that was not something that Ag CWIP wanted to pay for, but maybe that's something we could revisit. So I'm happy to have that conversation. I think, the bucket of work is going to stay the same, but it's just in terms of what's being counted where. So I'm happy to meet with you and our heads together and brainstorm on that a little further.
I mean, my concern, I completely agree with the argument that it's a core service. And so I think the appropriate funding place is the core services funding. I think the challenge is that $57,000 is not a whole lot of money to meet the core service deliverables, and that just the meeting alone can get pretty expensive because a lot of the districts are offering, they have to bring all of their staff, they have to plan the meeting. They usually offer free food as a way of encouraging people to come. So the meeting itself can get pretty expensive pretty quickly just for the one meeting. And then if you're also doing a survey, you're also running a public outreach process, then you have to take all that data and gather it together and collate it. And so I would think, Ag CWIP is in a better position to fund this, but I will say that one of the arguments that we perennially make to the legislature is that they need to fund this work in core services. So, just kind of sort of seeing both sides of that here.
Corey.
Yeah, I largely agree with Michelle's comment. I think that holding some form of a process together, public input, pull all the stakeholders together, partners together, and make some broad generalizations about what the resource concerns are and what types of solutions we would recommend as a group is a core function. And I think developing a comprehensive CAP action plan, as well as possibly pursuing local fund pool proposals, that feels like it's beyond a core service to me. And not all districts have the capacity to do it. And so I guess I would like to see that distinction maintained if possible.
I guess, Mary, is your sense that this entire bucket could only exist under one agreement, or can we split numbers?
So my question is more about the deliverables and the association of which agreement. I think we all know that this work is going to happen under multiple resources. I do caution trying to split beans between two agreements. So having half the meetings get reported under Ag CWIP, half of them under NRCC. We'd really prefer one or the other. And so that's why I would propose, well, maybe there's an alternative outcome of this work that could be included as a deliverable. So it's not a question of the work, it's more a question of how are you tagging it to each resource.
Travis?
I don't know that I can offer any helpful information other than our MOU does specify an agreement that, for exchange of this great work together, that the local work groups or the conservation districts will host local work group meetings. To Corey's point, you know, the work, you know, conservation action plan, local fund pool stuff, definitely is an expansion of that, but beyond kind of the MOU, in an effort to kind of help, you know, strengthen and build capacity of the conservation districts. So just food for thought. And I recognize I am the benefactor. I know there are others in the room that benefit from that, but that locally led conservation process is super, super important. And we are happy to have conversations about how to make it easier so districts have the resources they need in a way that's helpful to really strengthen that process. So just, we're all ears on how to be more helpful there.
Mary, would the agency be open to having a local fund pool be a deliverable under Ag CWIP, and then districts could say up front, like, we're going to do a local fund pool and we're going to commit to doing a local fund pool for the next 2 years and have that be an Ag CWIP deliverable?
I think the one, because I was looking back at notes, because I know that this conversation was had last fall. The one caution is that Ag CWIP is water quality. And we know that the local funding work, the local fund pools are not just water quality, it could be forestry, invasive management. You all know this already. So that's the one caution, is that we don't, yes, Ag CWIP is a great resource for funding, but it's limited to water quality priorities. So that could in turn limit your conservation action planning, or, you know, the type of work that is going on in that space. So that's the limitation there. So I think that's why under Ag CWIP, we're like, okay, we're comfortable funding the meetings. We're comfortable gathering stakeholder input, because let's develop a way that that can be used for tactical basin planning or state strategic planning. But is why we've drawn the line before on conservation action planning, because yeah, that is a big body of work, and it's not always, I mean, we know all these things are tangentially related to water quality, but maybe a little less directly. So.
Linda?
Yeah, I'm just trying to think through this whole process and whether, I mean, the purpose of having these deliverables, whether, you know, you're trying to put out standards that districts need to meet. Are there going to be dollar amounts assigned to this if they don't meet them? How is that? I guess I'm getting into more of the whole concept behind the deliverables. In the past, I think we've tried to use these as ways to encourage districts to cover more of the duties, if you want to call them that, if for lack of a better word, that we feel to be a fully functioning district they should be doing. But I'm just trying to process all that you're talking about and how we pull this together, and is there going to be any meat behind this, I guess, or is this another item that's just here, and if they do it, they do it, and if they don't, nothing happens?
This would be structured as all of the specific deliverables have a dollar amount attached to them in our core services agreement.
Okay.
So we've tended to sort of front load those agreements. It tends to make sense a little bit with the timing of financial reporting, et cetera, to tie a lot of payments to deliverables early on in the year. But this would have a dollar amount. I don't have a specific proposal for how much right now, but the idea would very much was to encourage every district to do this and to engage in this process as a standardized practice. And so this funding was going to be the mechanism of that standardization.
But some
And I guess
portion
as a
within
fo-
the 57,000.
As a follow-up, I'm a little concerned as I hear Mary talk and, you know, this back and forth, that this is going to end up being something that actually costs the districts. And I don't think any of us want that to happen, because that is not going to help make this local work group process happen.
Well, Corey, I see your hand is raised. Just to quickly answer your question, Linda, when we discussed this with the district managers, last year, there was an acknowledgement that there is a cost to these meetings, but that this was an appropriate place to draw from for that cost. So that was the understanding at least a year ago, and why we brought this to the table originally. That said, this is not an amount that could cover 4 or even 10 meetings at all. So that's why we are trying to split this cost across different funding sources. But Corey, you may have some more insights as well, or something else. I'll pass it to you, Corey.
I just wondered, what if the deliverable was some type of a report? It doesn't have to be a conservation action plan, which is a really robust document, but a report of the feedback that was gathered and the sort of recommendations that the local work group has produced. And I think the vision for that process was always that that report would go to NRCS technical committee, but also to the Agency of Ag and DEC and all the partners.
Is that acceptable?
Yeah, I think that sounds, again, it was really more about who's reporting what where. And I think that like a summary report of how the meetings went and what the outcomes of that were seems reasonable.
Okay.
I will, Katie in the chat wrote, she's hesitant to add an additional report to write.
I mean, sorry to jump the gun, but I think this would just be sharing the report that you're already writing, Katie. So that the report that your local work group report that you're sending to NRCS would also be a deliverable to council. And so when you provided it to council, then you would get the payment. So
Gotcha.
council
Thanks for the. Is it okay if I jump in with another question? I realize a few people have their hands raised. We can come back to me if that would be more appropriate.
Go ahead, Katie.
Question being a little bit specific regarding how Rutland and Pulteney Meadowy hold their local work group meetings. Yeah. Because we jointly hold those for Rutland County, and I want to make sure that wouldn't cause issues with how deliverables are awarded or how deliverables are worded. And I also want to make sure it's still equitable for other districts if we're kind of joining forces on this effort.
When we discussed this the last time around with district managers, that type of situation was anticipated, and this is mostly just to ensure participation. So this is really just participate in this process. How you do that will really be up to the districts. I know many districts do join forces in various ways, and that makes sense in a lot of cases. So that would not be prohibited or dinged in any way. Molly, I see your hand. I know Emily, Corey, you had hands up, but I do want to maybe bring it back to Willie first, if that's okay, Molly.
Oh, you're muted, Willie.
Unmuted, but we can't hear you.
Okay.
Is it your headphones? Does the thing need to come
Yeah,
down?
yeah. There was a button on my headphone that was muted.
There we go.
Thank you. I did have one question on what this report topic is, but would want to hear what Molly has to say first.
Okay, thanks. Molly.
Thanks, Claire. I first wanted to confirm, Mary said something earlier about, I believe it was Grand Isle and Lamoille didn't include something in Ag CWIP, and I just wanted to confirm what that was.
The local work group number of meetings, and I think that's because, and correct me if I'm wrong, Franklin, Lamoille, and Grand Isle have been doing it together.
Oh.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so we take a similar approach to what like Katie was describing. So they're sort of co-hosted, although Franklin has sort of taken the lead in organizing them. And yeah, I guess I just wanted to point out, similar to what Katie said, is that we do a lot across the 3 districts. And so just figuring out how that would be reflected in deliverables for core services and Ag CWIP. So just wanted to flag that.
Yeah, I think I realize we're maybe making an amendment to this as we talk, but what I would envision is a report that covers your district. So if it's a single report from your district, because you do your own local work group, that would count. If you're joining forces, the one report that covers 3 districts and robustly addresses, the 3 districts would also count. The way we've structured the amounts that go to districts, historically, we've split them evenly because our longstanding goal with this funding has been to try to get 1 position at every district fully funded. We have not met that goal. And so I think in terms of equity, if you're sort of joining forces to share the burden of the administration of the event, I don't know of a good way to prorate this agreement, and I wouldn't actually put a recommendation to do that. I think it would still be a flat budgeted amount per district, and I hope that everybody can sort of come to a way of using that funds that makes most sense for them. I hope that this is relatively minimal enough that it's not a huge equity concern, but I am open to hearing thoughts on that point. But right now, what I'm hearing based on Corey's suggestion, sounds like it would work for Mary, is that we would amend this deliverable. Instead of 1 local work group meeting, it would be 1 report generated on the results of the local work group and locally led process. And I am looking at our time. We are running a little far behind, but Willie, did you come off mute?
Yeah, I hope so.
Or was that?
No, so there was one, I know we're past time, but I feel like this is one of the 3 items that you wanted to vote on.
Yes.
But getting to the report, Michelle had said something about districts already submitting a report to NRCS. And I guess if that deliverable serves the function, that seems perfectly fine to me. When Corey was speaking about this initially, it seemed like a summary just of rather than a summary of like the result of the meeting, which would be sort of like a similar to the conservation action plan, but much less. It could just be a summary of the meetings held, since the right now we're looking at the deliverable item is to hold a meeting, and we're saying we don't want to have the overlap of that item with the Ag CWIP agreement. But my thought was, could we just have the report be just a summary of local work group meetings that were held, like date and time and members?
The local work group report to NRCS is something they have to do anyway. So I think that it would be easy to just carry that over so they don't have to write anything additional. If we just said that the local work group report provided to NRCS is sufficient to meet this deliverable, that gives them some additional funding to cover the portions that aren't a meeting. Like the writing of the report could now be funded out of they could fund that with core services, because they can't fund that with Ag CWIP. They're funding the meetings itself with Ag CWIP. So I think districts are already drawing on core services to fund that portion. So you're just going to say, here's what we provided to NRCS, and that meets the deliverable, would be my proposal. So there isn't any additional thing, because every year they provide a summary of the local work group process to NRCS, but then the conservation action plans might be updated periodically now that all the districts have one. But that would be something that might be updated every 3 years or every 5 years. We haven't really talked about that yet, but we wouldn't update that every year because that would be a lot of work.
Thank you.
And just to be clear, because this is a required report and because it is not explicitly funded by any existing source, in reality, districts may already be funding this out of their core services agreement or overhead off of other grants. So this would be a more clear identification of a funding possibility in a way that identifies this as a core activity of the districts in a very explicit way that then we can kind of talk about with the legislature, with our partners, with others, So, Sarah?
Hi, everyone. I know that everyone seems to want to move on, but I was just thinking about this whole like report, and I guess I understand that it's not necessarily a requirement for a district to do a conservation action plan for the NRCS local fund pool. Like there are districts who haven't done that, and maybe districts that are not planning to do that. So I don't know that it's exactly true that we have to, unless you all want to, I guess, require that, but I think that should be very clear instead of just simply saying a report. It should say a NRCS conservation action plan. And I think, as far as I understand it, the intent is not for those to get redone every year. It's like, how much are the resource concerns changing over the course of a year? You know, like mine is largely going to stay the same probably for like 5 years. And I really intend to like follow the tactical basin planning schedule in terms of updating those. So I just think we can get really far into the weeds, but I do think we should be like really clear about exactly what we mean when we require the report. And I'm with Katie on like, I'm not excited about like an additional report. So if it's okay for me to just submit the conservation action plan that I submitted last year, that's great. But I also might want to just recommend, like, could we just do something like we submit something to council giving evidence of a locally led effort that the district decided was what the district needed that year. So like board meeting minutes of like, the district decides this year we're not hosting a meeting because people are done with meetings right now, or we've played those out. And so instead we decided to do X. And we're collecting data and we have a survey, like just some sort of like memo of the locally led effort that we completed that particular year, because I think it can look different. And I think it's great to have flexibility for it to be different based on the needs. I don't know.
Sarah, isn't everyone doing a report of their locally led process every year? Like whatever comes out of it, they're doing a report that might not be, it's not the full conservation action plan. It's just a like, here's what we gathered this year that is separate from your conservation action plan. Is everybody, because that's it, correct me if I'm wrong, that's what's in statute, maybe? I'm not 100% sure. So
I see Jennifer just added something. Jennifer, did you want to add to this?
Hi, yeah.
I don't think everybody's doing a report every year. I don't.
That's correct, yeah.
I think people are doing it, but I don't think we have like a full on like, here's what happens, you know.
And it's not required in any way, shape, or form by anything, as far as I can see. We optionally provide local working group reports because there's guidance that tells us to do so. But yeah, not all districts provide annual local working group reports, and not all districts have conservation action plans yet. And then just what I see said in the chat, that I think something great that could happen would be for NRCC to receive, no matter what they are, local working group reports, local funding pool requests, conservation action plans, and every year provide a report on those things, do a cross-cutting analysis of the similarities, look for the good ideas, and then send that report to all the people that sit on council, of course, the agencies that sit on council, the legislators, and that could really be a way that we could develop joint policy proposals across the state. Annual NRCC report could be the deliverable.
Yeah, I agree, Jennifer. That is the ideal outcome of requesting this information. And I'm not trying, I think with this deliverable item, I don't want to make it restrictive. I think whatever people are doing, as long as you're engaging with the process in some way, the information that is coming out of that process should be provided to council. And so maybe we don't call that the local work group report or anything specific, but if there is some kind of alternate report that you are developing that still engages with this process, that would still also be acceptable. I agree with Katie and with the other information here. The intent here is not to cause some additional amount of work or burden, but really to recognize what's already involved with engaging in this process. And so I would, I guess in the phrasing of this deliverable item, it would be, providing information from the local work group process to council. I don't know any better phrasing right now. We can workshop that phrasing, but the intent would be what I just expressed.
So I'm sorry, I don't see any hands raised. I've got a ton of questions, but it's maybe because I'm new. I keep hearing the local work group process referred to as a process. So is it pretty clearly defined and pretty standard across all districts?
I would defer on this question maybe to others. I think there is a pretty, I guess, one standard vision, but the degree to which any given part of that process might happen in any given year might vary. Travis, do you want to speak more to this?
Yeah, it's a great question. So, the history of NRCS from, the 1930s, the Dust Bowl era, locally led conservation really is grounded in this concept that conservation priorities are really grounded, done best when it's locally led, right? The inception of the conservation districts. And from that, NRCS has adopted, we have policy that the way that we deliver our funds is through the local work group process. So we, hear from the districts what their priorities are. We have the state technical advisory committee where we get recommendations from partners at the state level. So there is a set process for NRCS. And Jen has actually done a really good job, probably one that I've seen nationwide. She's kind of outlined what that process looks like. It is policy for NRCS, and it says specifically where a district is absent or a district does not take the lead of a local work group meeting, the NRCS district conservationist will follow this process. So fortunately, most of Vermont, we do have districts that are stepping in and following that process. There's a ton of autonomy, if you will, for states to kind of develop their own process. But yes, there is a process outlined, but states have the ability to design their own system and work with NRCS to figure out what those local priorities are. But that local work group process is essentially a federal agency taking input from the local level and Vermonticizing those priorities to make sure that we're directing our funding towards those local priorities.
And the key output, and maybe the only output then, is identification and synthesis of priorities for that local community.
Yeah, and I would argue that a big push for me, at least for the past few years, through the locally led conservation delivery process, is really strengthening the conservation districts and having them sit at the head of that conversation about conservation so that they're driving priorities and that the work that they're doing for this local work group meeting is not only driving NRCS priorities, but as others have said, Jen has said, it's really driving what other state agencies are doing, maybe leveraging public-private partnerships. I'm hoping to build it beyond what NRCS is doing. And so that's a lot of what this discussion is about.
So the report that has been floated would include a summary of those conservation priorities coming out of the locally led conservation process. And also, but it also sounds like a summary of activities.
We have a standard template that we've given districts that they can fill out so that we make sure we're getting information for our programs. But the districts have done a great job, and I can look at many of the district managers. They also add a ton of information to those that is usable by a lot of other entities, not just our own. Yeah.
I'm wondering if there's a way of using this body to aggregate this information to draft a report in real time.
Yeah.
It sounds like it's happening, and the output has multiple forms, and not everybody is delivering a report, but the work is happening. And so I wonder if there's a way of achieving what's needed here.
Yeah.
Still getting the funding where it needs to go. But
I think the intention would be for council to produce a report, a consolidated report. I think in terms of developing a deliverable for the district, the concern I have is just making sure we're getting the information
Yeah.
from the districts.
Yeah.
And so this deliverable would be
I
ensuring we
see.
get that information. And then from the council level, we would then produce a report. We did a little bit, we sort of started dipping our toe into doing this last year, but I think we need to do it in a more systematic
I
way
see.
going forward.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I understand. Thanks. Thanks for bearing with me.
Give my naivete. Do the local work group, does that process follow like a cyclical schedule? Is there like a predictable schedule that the conservation districts are working under to host those?
Travis, do you want to?
Yeah, our
Speak to that?
guidance, sorry, I'll take my hand down. Our guidance says at least once a year. And for those of you that are in the room, Jen did put a link to that process, our standard policy there. But we do recommend meeting at least once a year, but depending on how active the conservation districts are, as you've heard, many of them meet a lot more often. I will say, so when we initially started this out in November of 2022 or 23, we were leveraging about $8 million in equip and about $200,000 in CSP. Since we've gone to the local fund pool process and we've really strengthened the local work group process, we're now leveraging roughly around $22 million in equip a year and around $5 to $6 million in CSP. So I want to say the work that the districts are doing is phenomenal because we could not do this alone. I mean, I can tier to Travis's priorities all I want, but they're not going to be super exciting. Our ability to do locally led conservation is leveraging a ton of resources that the districts have to expand conservation dollars to producers out there and address natural resource concerns. So it's pretty epic if you really take a look at kind of the big picture of what we're trying to do.
All right, thank you, Travis. I'm going to jump in because now I'm starting to get worried about the time. And and we clearly need to change this deliverable document. And I'm kind of wondering, Claire, do you want us to move forward with this today and make a motion and start making amendments to this document, or how would you like to see us proceed with where we're at?
I would still like a vote on the budget. And then in terms of the deliverables, I could make an amendment in real time just to offer that this deliverable be changed to the district provides council with information resulting from their locally led process. I hope that's sort of inclusive enough to meet any potential outcomes of, or be flexible enough to meet any potential reports or outcomes that are being developed by the district. So I would ask for a vote. If people don't feel comfortable voting, I am hoping to have another meeting in late June, a special meeting. We could potentially kick this item to then, but I would like to have it approved in time to have deliverables agreements ready for districts as of July 1st. So that would be my request.
Okay, well, I think I'm feeling like we're probably in a spot where we could move on. I see, Linda, you have your hand up, and I'm kind of wondering, so what I'd like to do is move on to motions to approve the budget. I think we'll start there. There didn't seem to be much discussion about that item, and then assuming we get through that one successfully, then we'll move on to a motion to approve the deliverables, and then we can offer the amendment to the deliverable items during that process. I guess before we move, Linda, you did have your hand up.
Yeah,
so I'd like
just quickly, I don't know that we have to amend the deliverables. I mean, the motion doesn't have to be amended because no motion has been made yet. So when we get to that, whoever makes the motion could make the motion to reflect the conversation that we've just had, the discussion that we've just had, and have that first deliverable be what we've been aiming for with this last half hour, whatever it's been, of discussion.
Yeah. Agreed. So I guess we're in not seeing anybody's hands, and I hope I'm reading the situation right and where everybody's at. But I think what I'd like to do now is I don't really know the best way to frame this. To entertain a motion to approve the budget proposal, which is the second page of what Claire had shared earlier. So if anybody else is with me, would anybody willing to make that motion?
I motion to approve the budget as proposed for the core services.
I'll second. It's all you, Linda.
We have a motion and a second to approve the core services budget proposal. Are there any opposed? Not seeing any hands or hearing anything. Let's say the motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Oh, this is great. That feels like such a good success for me. and all of us, I hope. So now I think where we're at was to hear a motion on the deliverables. And I don't know if there's anybody out there that has an idea of how they want to frame that motion.
I'd be happy to speak to some language. I can't offer the motion.
Let's get the.
I think what I heard Claire suggest earlier, and I'll make a motion and we can work it out together, was to adjust deliverable number 5 to be worded something along the lines of to provide information to the NRCC as a result of the local work group meetings.
Or the locally led process. Yeah.
I second.
All right, with that motion, so that would just be a motion to change the language that's under consideration. Would that motion also include accepting the deliverables with that?
Sorry,
or?
Am I allowed to reword my motion then?
Go for it.
I'm going to make a motion to put forward the deliverables as listed on the May 25th memo with one amendment, which is to item 5, and to strike item 5 completely and rephrase it as providing input to the NRCC resulting from the locally led conservation process. Claire, does that sound
Does
reasonable?
it also need to be amended to include that FY27 work plan?
Yes.
Sorry,
So
I missed that part.
That was early.
this was something I noted earlier. I failed to list 2 of our existing deliverables, which was a FY27 work plan and an FY27 budget. So.
Okay, let me try. Third time.
Sorry, Chris.
That's okay. I'll make a motion to approve the list of deliverables in the May 25th memo as listed with 3 exceptions. One is to change item 5 to be worded as providing input to the NRCC resulting from the locally led conservation process. Additionally, there are 2 additional deliverables, number 7 being an FY27 work plan, and number 8 being an FY27 budget. And maybe the numbering doesn't matter a whole lot.
It doesn't, but that is complete. Yes, thank you.
And did we still have a second for that, or I'm willing to second that. That was so good, Chris. Good job. Thank you.
No worries. Now I want to go to a local work group meeting.
Oh, yes, you definitely should.
All right, we have a motion and a second, and then we can do discussion. And I see, Michelle, you're raising your hand.
Yeah, I would just on deliverable 6, there's been some discussion around requiring 360 reviews rather than just a review, so that external partners are providing input to the board, as well as staff, so that, I would just suggest that that's something to consider, which unfortunately would mean amending Chris's motion, but to make it a requirement that it's a 360 review and not just a review. So that boards are getting input from outside of, are being sure that they're getting input from a wide variety of folks who work with and interact with the district managers.
I wonder if 6 needs to be revised though, because it doesn't, as I'm reading it, it sounds like we're going to be following up with a review template, and it doesn't seem to restrict the review just to boards and staff, does it?
Yeah, and I guess the question is it, will the group template be required or not?
Oh.
Or can they?
Lily has his hand raised.
Yeah, so my board has discussed in Caledonia, we've discussed doing a 360 review, and it's a huge lift for the board. So I would say I can't, my board can't handle that at this point, and I hope we don't add it, but that's my input on that one. Linda also has her hand raised.
Yeah, I would just, well, an amendment hasn't been made, so this is kind of out of order, but I'm going to do it anyway because we've sort of been out of order. I would say that the 360 review is not a huge lift for the board. But I know there's different capacity on different boards, but we have a pretty basic performance evaluation for our district manager. In fact, we're looking to rework it in Windham County, but I don't know that I've done 360, but when I do Corey's performance evaluation, I have reached out just briefly, takes an email or whatever to staff members, of our district, and just a few people throughout the state that our district managers work with, whether it's our basin planner or whoever. I haven't found it to be a horrendous task, and it has been pretty insightful and helpful in doing that evaluation, but just my 2 cents.
I'll just add quickly. We have used 360 for our state staff, and it is really valuable. It is a big time commitment. You are asking people to do an evaluation of you, but it is really helpful to get a variety of perspectives. One note I will make is I do believe it costs money. So that is one consideration for various districts, unless that's, part of their core services budget.
Yeah, I think your suggestion, Michelle, was more along the lines of a 360 style review rather than like any
Okay.
specific.
Okay, got it.
Yeah,
Okay. Okay, got it.
But that said, I think the way I have this phrased right now is that we would be providing recommendations and guidance, and that the recommendations may be to include people that a district board could reach out to for external feedback, including other district staff, VACD or council staff, our partner staff, etc., about some ideas. And then I'm a little hesitant to get too far into requiring any specific template, because I do know a lot of districts have done a lot of this work already in sort of developing their own templates. I don't necessarily want to devalue or override the process that they've created, but for districts that don't already have this process, I hope we can provide some useful tools, and also some area of reflection for the board that if they want to continue improving their processes, is maybe a way that they could do it. I do think that having this as a deliverable and having the board notify council, or that this has been done, does give council and VACD a potential opportunity to proactively give feedback if there's any specific thing that is on our radar, and have a conversation with the board. That we don't tend to have a lot of direct conversations with the board, and so this could be a mechanism to sort of enable like at least one conversation per year between, council and a district board. So anyway, I think my recommendation right now would be to, at least this year, leave it a little bit more general. And then if we find a need in future years, we could potentially keep this item and amend it further. I don't know. Sure. How you think that would be, Michelle?
Yeah, that would be fine. I just wanted to flag that, we've been internally discussing the need for boards to hear from partners when reviewing district managers and from staff. And that applies to our reviews as well.
I'll call the question.
Call the question. Linda would like to vote on this. I don't really want to go through the whole process of voting on whether we vote. So is there any
Yeah, I'm
objection
sorry.
to bring?
Willie, I just was more just trying to, say, sorry.
No, that's all right.
I'm formal, but I'm not formal.
Does anybody object to voting on this right now? Sarah, you have your hand up, but that was before Linda called the question. Do you object to us voting on this topic?
Oh, no, and I really don't have any say over your voting, but I just wanted to,
All right, then, sorry to interrupt you then. But I wanna move forward too. So we've got the question. I want to respect that. Kate, is that you with your hand up?
It is, and I'm not exactly sure what we're getting at here, I guess. And exactly what are we voting on? Are we voting on
Yep, that's a great question.
saying that the boards of the various districts should evaluate the district managers? I mean, I'm not really sure what this is.
Okay, so let me frame it for us all. I'm going to just go ahead and say nobody objected to calling the motion. So we've got a motion in front of the board to accept the deliverables memo with amendments as described by Chris when he made the motion. One of them is to remove number 5, one local work group meeting, and replace that with language about updating the NRCC board about the local working group process. And then the other 2 amendments were to add to the list of deliverables the work plan and the annual budget. So the question is, the vote that we're going to take now is to accept that motion from Chris with those 3 amendments.
I don't know. I guess I'm maybe I'm not paying attention, but I understood the amendment about getting input from the locally led process. I guess I missed the other 2 amendments. I'm not really sure what they are.
One was an FY27 work plan and one was an FY27 budget. And then we got into discussion.
That I assume all the districts are doing already, but so then the deliverable is more about getting that information to council. Is that correct?
That's correct, Kate. And this amendment was made due to my error. Those are existing deliverables, so that was not a change. They are the current deliverables for the district.
I see. Okay.
The only 2 new items are the ones listed below as 5 and 6.
Okay.
So yeah.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense to me. Yeah. Sorry, I guess I misunderstood and thought those were being added as additional deliverables. Okay. Okay, I'm clear.
Okay, great. Then let's take the vote. I don't know where everybody is on this, so we'll do a voice vote, and if it's not clear, then we'll do a roll call. All those in favor of the motion with amendments, say aye or raise your hand. Aye.
Aye. I don't know how you take that off.
Are there any opposed opposed? No. Any abstention? Appears to be unanimous. Sorry to cut you off, Sarah, but I wanted to respect the process there. What is it you wanted to add?
It's fine. I was starting to put it in the chat, but I was just gonna say, similar to what you brought up, if that's the heavy lift, is I just wonder if there should be like, kind of like what Mary brought up. I think everybody might interpret a 360 in a different way. So just a little bit of guidance from NRCC around the expectations. And I know for me, my board has done 360 reviews in the past, and I just think it would be too much to do that annually from everyone's perspective. So even if it could be just left up to the discretion of the board in terms of what that 360 looks like, I think some version of a 360 is always good, but like engaging partners every year just feels like too much.
Well, thank you, everyone. I will be developing some resources related to this item, and it may involve some resources about what a 360 review is and how to do it. But as of right now, that would not be a requirement. It would simply be a review. So,
Claire, there's one other item on this core services updates, DM rep position description, but I also want to acknowledge that I have not been running your meeting this meeting very efficiently.
well, Willie, this is your meeting, but I guess I do have some suggestions on agenda amendments, because we are about an hour behind what I had projected at this point. So the DM position description was really provided, I think, for transparency to the board. I don't think we need board approval, but we will be drafting agreements for the district manager reps. There will be an election this year, so we will have some new reps, I believe. Corey, you've expressed some interest in continuing, but I believe Sarah will be stepping down. So we will, dependent on the outcome of the election, after that, we'll be making some agreements. Those agreements are, will not be reaching the $20,000 threshold per agreement. So they will not come to the finance committee or the board for approval. So this was your opportunity to take a look at what we are contracting the district manager reps to do. And if you had any questions or concerns about that, I'm happy to have that discussion, but I would actually recommend maybe tabling that item to our next meeting. If there are questions, it'll give people time to look at that as well. And we may have more to report at the next meeting. The items that I'm really hoping that we can get to today are some of the admin update items. And I think from my perspective, the rest can be tabled to a future meeting. So at this point, I think, Willie, I would recommend tabling a few of these items, maybe going to a break, and then after break, coming back to item 4 on the agenda.
Okay, I propose that we table the items Claire just recommended. We go to break, and then we come back to admin update, item 4. Are there any objections to that proposal for the remainder of this meeting? Seems like we're all in agreement there. Yeah. So, Claire, should we go to a break then?
I think so. We'll take a 10-minute break. That means we'll be back here around 2:43 by my clock. We'll get started again. Willie, Lena and I are going to check the minutes in the meantime. But if we come to some conclusion, we may vote on that later. But we'll let you know.
Okay, great.
All right, see everybody soon.
See you all in 10 minutes.
All right, well, welcome back, everyone. We're about at the end of our break. Willie, I wanted to say that we did check the meeting minutes in the meantime. The roll call on page 5 is correct. That was on the main motion. There was a vote at the bottom of page 4 about a vote on the amendment, and that we can further break down. It did pass, but we will record the yays and nays. I'm happy to go through them right now, or one thing we could do is we could make the amendments and then present these at the next board meeting, so that we would not be voting on these today. I guess that would be my recommendation right now, is that we table the minutes till the next meeting, pending these corrections.
Okay, that's fine with me. Does anybody object to tabling these minutes until the next meeting to allow the corrections to be made? Actually, I'm not really sure that everybody's back yet. So many cameras are off. So, yeah, Linda, what do you?
Just, I'm not sure if the roll call vote was to do with now I've lost track, but the main motion or the original motion, and then the minutes say that by a voice vote, the other motion passed and there wasn't a roll call taken, then that was the call of the chair to say the motion passed and the minutes reflect that. So I'm not sure that it really needs an amendment, but I'm not used to meetings being recorded and being able to go back, but we could rewrite minutes forever by going back to the recordings and rewriting the minutes. So I'm fine either way. It's not my call on this, but I'm thinking we're belaboring the point and maybe we don't need to.
We may be belaboring it, Linda, because the information here is correct, as written. The only amendment I would be making is to further record the actual votes of the yays and nays. Historically, I've done that to reflect people's positions within the minutes. But normally normally everybody votes yes. So there's no distinction to be made. In this case, there were nays, but we could simply leave it as is. You're right.
Was the vote made as a roll call vote?
No, it was made as a voice vote.
Okay.
So
Okay.
if that's the case, Linda, we could vote on this right now. We would not be making any changes to the votes. We would just be adding Chris we accidentally left Chris off, and so we would be adding him as a voting attendee.
Okay, just to get this over and done with, I hope, I'm going to make a motion to approve the minutes of the February 2026 council meeting with the addition of Chris with UVM extension as being in attendance.
We have a motion on the floor. Do we have a second?
I'll second a second time.
Have a second. We have discussed this. I don't know if does anybody want further discussion? Not seeing any. I'll call the vote. All those in favor, say aye. And raise your hand. Aye.
Aye.
Kate Rader raised her hand. Chris raised his hand. Any opposed? None opposed. Motion passes. Jill, I didn't see how you voted, but I guess it doesn't really matter because you weren't opposed.
It's Ethan that's voting. I guess for the record, I wasn't there at the meeting, so I think I need to abstain.
Oh, all right.
I was going to say
Any
the same thing,
abstentions?
actually.
No, you don't. According to Robert's Rules of Order, you don't have to be at a meeting to approve meeting minutes.
Oh,
it makes no sense to me, but I have been taught that in a multiple number of Robert's Rules of Order trainings.
Okay, good to know.
I don't know how you
like
approve
to
minutes
vote?
when you're not there, but
I'm happy to vote in the affirmative. I'm happy to vote yes
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, recognizing
Then the record is
that
approved.
Marley was actually in attendance. Or
Okay.
DNR.
Most motion passes, and I think that I'm confused on who people are.
That's all right, Willie. We have a lot of new people today. So Ethan is here for A&R since Marley's not able to be here. Jill's taking notes for Marley.
Okay.
Yeah, and Mary's here for Agency Bag.
All right.
So I'm
Oh,
sitting
Mary-
in the seat Nina would have sat in.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
I'm Marley's alternate, I think, on the board.
All right.
All right. Well,
Thank you.
well, thank you everyone for bearing with us through that, and I'm glad we have some approved minutes. We will get those posted. Thank you. I'd like to, I guess, we have a number of admin items under this next section. The first thing I have here, I do anticipate might take some time, and then there's the third item underneath this section that I was hoping for a vote, but also may take some time. I think the more pressing issue, we could potentially table the vote if need be. So I'm just going to go through these items in order as presented. So the first one here is the Act 250, Act 188, Outreach Process Development Appropriations. This is, I did circulate a memo sort of explaining the situation, but council is currently named in a bill. It just got passed out of concert committee of conference, and I believe it's awaiting governor's signature. Yes. Currently. So this is a it's a bill that relates to a number of items, but as it relates to us specifically, council is named as an entity to receive appropriations that would then be contracted out to develop an outreach plan for public engagement around the Act 250 and Act 181 issues. I'm happy to, I did send around some of the language itself from the bill. One of the things I wanted to note right off the bat is that there is new information available on the legislature's website since this did just get passed out of committee of conference. So what I sent around were sort of earlier drafts, and what got passed, I can say, did include some of the language that was in the committee of conference report, sort of page 20 onwards in what I sent out. So this is, as it relates to our item, this is the language change would further clarify that this outreach project is not supposed to be partisan. It is not supposed to come to any particular conclusions about what the results of the outreach should show. Sort of further trying to clarify that process. And I did, because there has been some confusion over this discussion or this item, a little bit, I've heard some confusion. This item does not specifically call on conservation districts or council or VACD to actually conduct the outreach right now. It is the development of a plan and a report that go back to the legislature to then further take and either consider, adopt, or amend to establish the outreach process. So this is the planning stage before we even get to the outreach process. So under this act, council would receive the money and then contract out the money to VACD and to the Vermont Council on Rural Development, who would then work together to help develop the plan. So I wanted to bring this to you. Obviously, it is on the governor's desk right now. So this is more for awareness, but also the ability to ask questions and provide comments, input about this, because what would happen as of the new fiscal year, once we have an approved state budget, is that $30,000 would be sent to us, and then we would be in a position of making these contracts. And so I would just open this up for conversation, discussion. I know that Act 250 and Act 181 have been very hot topics here in the state. And so, so yeah, this is just an opportunity for general comment. And Michelle, I don't know if before we open it up more broadly, you want to say anything in addition?
Sure. So House, the legislature decided not to rescind language in Act 181 around Tier 3, which was focused on Act 250 requirements in rural lands and potentially changing those to further address issues like protecting headwaters and reducing forest fragmentation, because there has been some pushback and some negative responses around that. And so because both the Vermont Council on Rural Development and conservation districts are in state and federal, in the case of conservation districts, state and federal statute, and in the case of VCRD, federal statute, to do outreach around conservation and land use in rural areas. This was the legislature opted to give funding to those two organizations to work together to develop an outreach plan. And so that's all we're doing at this point. And there was some changes to the language in conference committee, as Claire said, to make sure that this is the actual language says that the engagement planning process does not presuppose outcomes or take positions on policy and political issues, and that it utilizes nonpartisan facilitation for statewide democratic public engagement. And then the legislature had some questions that they were hoping the engagement process would address, and those were changed to be a little less directive and a little broader than they were in the original legislation that came out of the House. So we're pleased with both of those changes, and I think this is a good opportunity for districts to simply work with VCRD, and we also have to work with the Land Access Opportunity Board and the LURB, the Land Use Review Board, which is implementing Act 181, to develop this public engagement process. And so districts will likely have opportunities to participate at different levels in whatever public engagement process is developed, but none of us are obligated to do any public engagement by simply creating the process.
So are there questions? That was sort of a high level overview of this. Questions or comments, Willie?
So is are we going to need to award a contract to the Vermont Rural, sorry, I'm getting confused on the acronyms already, but we're going to be asked to award a contract to these partners to create this plan. Is that correct?
That's correct. And my understanding is that council, in its position as a state entity, has the ability to receive these appropriations and then turn around and make the contracts. Essentially, we are handling state appropriations that have been already directed towards this purpose. So we will functionally be sort of carrying out the contract, to both entities. Yes.
So do we have any ability to decide who gets this contract, or is that stipulated in the law?
It's stipulated in the law. So we would not, so this would, we've developed a procurement process with the Agency of Administration, but in this case, it would not be subject to our our standard bid process, because this has really already been determined where this money is going. What I would be doing is making sure with AOA that we are sort of dotting our I's and crossing our T's and how that process happens. With the transfer of funds, making sure that we're fully in compliance with things from their perspective. But yeah, basically, yeah, this is just going to be making contracts to these entities. And then we would, be in a position of needing to, receive the information and the outcomes of the contract work, and sort of consolidate those. So sort of as a contract sort of management process.
Sorry, I see Kate's hand. Sorry.
Yeah, Kate.
Yeah, I mean, I think you answered some of those questions. I just don't. It seems really unusual to me that a law would pass. I mean, it sounds like the money's coming to council, and then the legislation directed that it be given to the two nonprofit entities without. I mean, what would be the normal process for? Well, I guess I have two questions. Number one, what? I guess maybe we don't have any choice, but I don't feel like, why would we want to get in the middle of the Act 181 discussion? It just seems like it's kind of a no-win. And second of all, normally if a state agency or entity were to award a $30,000 grant, don't you, under normal circumstances, wouldn't you have to go through the state procurement process?
If we were to receive funds that were not already directed, then yes, we would normally have to go through a procurement process. In this case, the legislature has already determined the recipients. So I actually can't speak to how common it is for the legislature to identify specific recipients of certain funding. I believe it happens on a not infrequent basis. When the state is looking for certain processes to be undertaken, I think there's been comparable situations in the past, such as the Act 59 outreach process that has gone to VHCB that was directed by the legislature instead of a general procurement process. So I don't think this is, unprecedented from the legislature's perspective. We have never had this happen for us. So this is new for council. I think this agenda item does, it relates to the agenda item I have right after this, which is our statute committee, which I was hoping to have a more general conversation about how council interacts with the legislature, because I guess for the board's information, we have not provided any feedback from council to the legislature about this issue. So this is sort of coming to us. We have not expressed, support or opposition to this from council itself. Some of this is due to timing and just the fact that right now, the decision-making power of council rests with the full board. And it is a little difficult to convene full board meetings on the legislature's timetable. So I am hoping to have more of a conversation about that. But at this point, we're in the position of this money sort of coming to us and sort of making sure it gets to where it needs to go. I hope that goes a little ways towards answering your questions, Kate, but if you have more specific questions, I'm happy to talk through those as well.
Well, I mean, it sounds like we don't have it. It's the legislature made this decision. It sounds like we don't have a lot of choice, but I guess I have concerns with just the conservation districts just sort of being dragged into this whole discussion on Act 181, just in general.
I mean, I think the goal is just to design a neutral public engagement process, a public engagement process that doesn't presuppose outcomes and that allows everyone to weigh in, right? And the VCRD process, as they have used it in the past, like actually records every single person's input on an issue. So when they do these public outreach processes statewide, or they do their local community visit process, every single person who makes a comment, that comment is recorded and included in the final report. So it is generally, it is policy neutral. Like they don't take a position. Their role is to do this engagement process. But because the districts have the expertise on conservation and they have the relationships in rural communities, they know the people who are unhappy about Act 181. It's an opportunity to make sure that the voices of the people districts work with are heard potentially in this process. So our role is to sort of help to create that public engagement process so that we can be certain that everybody's at the table and everybody gets heard, and districts can help do that because we have those relationships. But it's not, at this point, it is just helping VCRD design a process for public engagement. That's our role at this point.
I'm sure that's the goal, but I have a hard time thinking it's not going to backfire.
I do think that, there was probably some, you can see where it was intentional, given just, I think that so many folks have conflated sort of the goals and objectives around Act 59 with what was happening with 181. And so, taking VHCB's role aside from trying to meet those targets under Act 59 and have some clear separation there. Yeah. I mean, that makes a lot of sense to me to look to NRCC to be the more neutral board to develop the plan, right?
Ethan, I think that's right. From what I've heard, there was a struggle about knowing how to direct this money because Act 59 and the 30 by 30 outreach process has in and of itself been controversial. Mm-hmm. I think there was maybe a thought that they wouldn't go that route, which is a historic route they might have gone otherwise. Mm-hmm. I have heard that there were some concerns expressed about the money going to any given agency. So like if it went to ANR, there would be a concern that the process would be tinged by like conservation and preservation concerns. If it went to Agency of Agriculture, Working Lands concerns, we sort of sit at the intersection of those. Mm-hmm. And so I think there was a thought that that the state or legislature could avoid some of the potential bias that may come with another type of entity.
Sure.
Now, that said, council itself is not shaping the plan. We are contracting out the plan. Mm-hmm. But I think it was an intentional choice sort of every step of the way due to those factors. And I know we haven't really talked about this with the council board before, but I've been in a position of being engaged with some of these statewide initiatives for, either in my role as council administrator or in my role as VACD, things like the Act 76 water quality work, the Act 59 30 by 30 initiative, the County and Regional Governance Study Committee, all of these
Act
various
21 is another one, I think.
Yeah, all of these various state initiatives. And over the years, we've heard a lot of concerns from districts that districts weren't getting any kind of input on the front end about what these processes look like, mm-hmm. or even being named in statute at all when there are things that are relevant to us, like the County and Regional Governance Study Committee doesn't name districts, even though we are some of the only county scale governance entities in the state. Mm-hmm. And so this, on the upside, is an opportunity for districts to have some intentional input into a process that's created. There are already concerns about this process as a whole in and of itself. I included with this memo a memo that was sent out by the Environmental Justice Advisory Council that expressed concerns about how this aligns with the work they're doing. Mm-hmm. They're working on a timeline towards creating statewide tools and plans and processes that doesn't quite align with what's here. And also had some thoughts about, we have had so many of these initiatives that we've just outlined. I just outlined some of them. There are so many more. Sense that people are getting exhausted by these kinds of public engagement processes. Mm-hmm. I want to acknowledge those concerns and also say that perspective and input can be incorporated into a report that's provided back to the legislature through this process.
Mm-hmm. This is a plan. Yeah, this is developing the plan, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
That said, like there's a lot going on in the state and it's hard to square everything. And I know this is a big, really emotionally charged topic right now. So Jennifer, I think if you want to provide some additional comments, I know you provided me with some, but feel free.
Sure. And I mean, can I do a little bit of the EJ update? I don't want to I know you said maybe at the end of the meeting I could be on the schedule.
Well,
but
I think it ties in here, so feel free. And at this point, we're already tabling a number of items for next meeting, so feel free.
yeah, and I'd be happy to come back next time to do a more thorough update. But we've mentioned, Claire just mentioned the Environmental Justice Advisory Council, which NRCC has a seat on, and it's existed since 2022. There are many deadlines in that law. It established an advisory council as well as an interagency committee of 10 state agencies. And we meet probably 3 times a month to do EJ work. I'm on several committees with that council. The interagency committee and the advisory council have 6 joint meetings a year and then 6 separate meetings per year. Lately, we just established, it's really exciting, actually, we established like kind of a buddy system between the 2 entities, the 2 groups, where each council member is matched with the interagency members. And thankfully, I'm matched with Abby Willard from Agency of Ag and the Department of Health, Amy Redmond from Department of Health. So we see some really exciting work to be done between districts and Ag and Health and food. But important deadlines and like understanding about that law and where we're at. It's really like the effort, what environmental justice kind of broadly, the effort is around really de-siloing agencies and resources and community engagement efforts and being way more holistic in how we approach things. That takes a really long time to try to de-silo all these agencies, but it's incredible that they're sitting together 12 times a year, all 10 of these agencies, to discuss community engagement. So a really important deadline to know is that July 1st, 2027, all covered agencies must have a completed community engagement plan for their agency. Currently, pretty much every agency is out of compliance with both the state law and the federal laws around community engagement by not having any type of robust, meaningful plan. And yeah, everyone's upset that we're overburdening the most overburdened communities with these kind of silly public engagement processes. And so the effort with EJ is to address that burden by not doing it over and over and over again separately in every agency, but to do it statewide and really all of government. So it's understandably taken a long time. Our deadlines keep getting pushed back. Thankfully, this community engagement deadline is not being pushed back. But the reality is the deadline is for the agencies to have those complete by next July. So us as the committees who are working on this, we're about to release, one of the statutory requirements was that we develop core principles. Those were developed about 1.5 years ago and published, core principles of community engagement. So that's done. But then since then, we've been working on more of a really honed in guidance document for state agencies, almost like a plug and play, but even more than that type of document for them to create their community engagement plans. And so that guidance document, we're going to have a draft out this June that's going to go around to the committee and the council and get bumped around. It's great, because that'll be a resource. Obviously, council's on the advisory committee, so we can both input into that and also benefit from it. And also, I would say, what else is there to say about that? Well, there's a letter. So the Environmental Justice Council wasn't ever consulted or asked to come in and talk until about 2 weeks ago about anything all year, so it was a very much the council members saw that there was community engagement money being kind of tossed around in this space or talked about, and council's never received any money. The AJ Council has never received any funding to do pretty much anything. So thinking about how could, instead of now writing yet another kind of report on a very specific niche question. I don't know if you all shared the question that's actually in this language, but it's very niche. It's very much like it's a one topic kind of a plan. I think it's important to understand that what is currently in this law that you all are discussing that might be signed, it's not a community engagement plan. It's a PIP. It's a public involvement plan, like if you want to get technical with it. So a PIP can be informed by a community engagement plan. And so there's like a bigger picture work that's going on that council's really deeply involved in, like through this seat, that I'd love to share more about. It's not just about this community engagement planning stuff. There's about 6 other deliverables in the law that we're working on simultaneously around cumulative impacts, a rulemaking process around that, an environmental justice mapping tool. There's regular reports on civil rights complaints and environmental justice complaints that are being reviewed annually. Yeah, there's so much to say about that, but it's a huge opportunity and a huge moment with the EJ Council, all the work that's been done, and more people should know about that's about to happen. I'll put the letter in the chat.
Yeah, thank you, Jennifer. And I see, Linda, your note here too. I guess I'm happy to continue talking about this and take questions. I think there is an opportunity for council. Jennifer, as you know, we have a seat on the EJ Advisory Council. Jennifer is currently our representative. And so I think there is an opportunity to do direct engagement with the EJ Council with this process development in recognition that this is not what the EJ Council advised and has deep concerns about. So I'm not sure to what degree, those concerns can be addressed or overcome. It may be that the report back to the legislature says that those, cannot be, overcome or whatever, but
we're required, the law requires that the process align with the core principles for community engagement plans developed by the EJ advisory group. And it also, so that is a part of this. And, again, the questions are something that I would say that VCRD and VACD have had concerns about, where we're glad to see them be broadened coming out of the conference committee. But part of the report may in fact be, part of the public engagement recommendations may in fact be that these questions are too narrow and need to be broader. So that's certainly on the table. So just to address those 2 concerns.
I do intend that this is not the only time we'll talk about this. This is sort of putting it on your radar, giving you opportunities for initial questions. Happy to talk about more now, but we have about 15 minutes left, and I am hoping to get through at least another couple of these items. I don't know, but don't want to cut off conversations. So are there any other questions or comments, concerns at this point?
I just have a quick clarification. So this is happening, like it's already passed and
it's out of committee of conference. The governor has not signed it.
Okay, so I've got it.
It's been voted on by both. Okay. The conference committee report has passed both houses and is now on the governor's desk.
I was just trying to get a sense on where it actually is.
Yeah, so this is kind of an awkward item to talk about right now because it hasn't been passed. It's not actually a law yet, but
it passed both the House and Senate. The conference.
I mean, in terms of being signed by the governor.
Yeah, it just hasn't been signed by the governor.
So it's not quite executed.
He could veto it.
Not quite executed yet, but we at this point don't have much opportunity for input.
Okay.
Yes.
Right.
Thanks for the clarification.
Yeah. Any other questions, comments? Okay, I do intend to have this as an agenda item in future meetings as this gets rolled out. I think coming straight out of this conversation, I do want to highlight one of the challenges we've seen this year more than really at any other point in time is a question of how council engages with the legislature. I guess there are 2 things. The first thing is that a year or more ago, council created a statute committee. That committee has not convened yet. It's on my to-do list. I haven't gotten to it for a couple of reasons, which I'm happy to talk about, but it is something I am hoping to roll out as soon as possible for meetings to start happening this spring. That said, the initial charter of that committee was really just to review our statute, our enabling statute and the district enabling statute, and make recommended changes. So it was a more of a process development of looking at ourselves, bringing a slate of proposed changes back to the legislature. So it's a very proactive process and more internally focused process. We don't really have any kind of committee or delegation of authority right now about who or how we provide feedback to the legislature about questions coming from the legislature. So, for example, something like this, no one from council was really asked to give input to the legislature by the legislature. And it's a little unclear to what degree any person, I'm not sure to what degree I can speak on behalf of council for this type of issue. In statute right now, this is any decision-making authority by council is really retained by the board itself. And we have not done any supplementary policies to delegate authority or to outline any of this kind of external representation. So I do have a draft appointment and representation policy that starts to address this in some instances where there are actual appointments being made and or other types of representation to external bodies. But this doesn't necessarily address the question of engagement with the legislature. So we are running low on time today, and I don't have any specific recommendation to propose to the board, but I guess right now, just to flag my intent, I want to create a policy for council about how we respond to questions from the legislature in the future. And so this would be really clarifying who can give input on what and when, so that we can sort of move forward with some degree of confidence about how we react to this kind of thing or other potential future changes, like if the legislature starts looking at opening up clean water funding or anything else that impacts us in the future, or if council is named in something, or if we feel like council should be named in something and is not, like the County and Regional Governance Study Committee. So that's a very broad topic. I would take initial thoughts or input right now. If there's any reactions to that, Linda?
Yeah, I guess it comes back to the question of just what we are, right? You have a document in our packet to do with different other boards and agencies or things that are similar in structure to us. And my first thought was, well, how does the Agency of Ag get involved with the legislature, and who do they delegate, or who does ANR? But then we're not really an agency the way we function. So then it's like, well, VHCB, for instance, or some of those other boards that you have in that document that are similar in structure to us, how do they do it? And I would just suggest, and I'm sure you've already thought of this, that, kind of look to maybe some of how they all operate and represent themselves to the legislature or answer questions.
Yes, and I think that's part of what I hope to maybe learn a little more about and developing a recommendation for council. But my understanding is that the agencies have state staff who are empowered to do certain things, and including provide information to the legislature, and that the secretaries of the agencies do work with the governor's office on developing certain positions. We don't have state staff, but we could empower one of our contracted personnel. There are pros and cons to that. Alternately, we could empower our board chair or another representative from council in sort of an individual delegation of authority. We could also create or empower a committee or of the board, which has its own pros and cons, mostly being timeliness. And the fact that all meetings are subject to open meeting law. So, 48 hours notice, hybrid location requirements, etc. So I think just looking at the time, I think what makes sense is for me to maybe put some thoughts on paper and bring that back to the board. But it's, I think that would really benefit from maybe a little bit more information from our agency partners and some structure to have that conversation. But any other initial thoughts?
Did you say you had a draft policy already?
I have
For
it.
appointments.
I have an appointment and representation policy.
Is that that's what you said? I don't know if I got that one. You have it.
Oh, Mary, I don't know. I added you to the chain late. I'm so sorry.
That's okay.
No worries, because it sounds like we'll have time to discuss it another time. I just want to make sure I didn't miss the draft.
No, I will get that to you. We have 5 minutes left in this meeting,
Yeah,
so
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
really, I'm very sorry. I think at this point we may need to also table the draft policy. I do anticipate that's a little more robust discussion. I can give updates on these remaining 2 items, if that's okay with you.
Yeah, yeah, I think that makes sense to table the draft appointment and representation policy.
Okay.
Thanks for putting together the structure comparisons. I think that's
Yes.
useful to look at.
Well, I think it might benefit for everybody to have some more time to sit with the information I sent out, the structure comparisons, the draft policy. I was saying to people in the room over break, we have a number of very big questions for council that we need to work through. So I'm anticipating a number of special meetings, one happening hopefully towards the end of June, and then maybe some more after that, because there are just a number of structural and legal questions that we need to sort of make sure we're all in the same understanding and sort of have down on paper. So I'll leave it there for now, but I'm happy to, as you look through the materials, if you have questions or comments, I'm happy to take those in between now and the next meeting. These last 2 admin items, one is a request for quotation for legal assistance to support district-related questions. We don't have this quotation developed yet, but this is giving the board a heads up that we intend to put out a call for legal assistance that would be funded by council to support some district level questions about a number of topics, mostly related to their municipal status and what that means in different contexts, relation to certain state level benefits that they might have access to and other types of regulations that may come into play. So we're just trying to sort through that. As those who have been involved with council for a while know, our statute is a little unclear in certain areas. We'd like to clarify it, but we need to know which direction to go in to, start that process of clarification. So once we have that request for quotation, I'll send that out to the board so you can review. But that's what that is, just giving you a heads up that this is part of our overall support of organization capacity building to try to move forward and resolve some of the lingering ambiguity around district status. Any questions there?
Sounds prudent.
It's been on the back burner for a while. And yeah, there are a number of other items that are in the works. Jennifer, I see you put in the chat about insurance rates. Yes. And then we are working with VLCT also. So we have a number of very sort of admin, HR, finance related questions that are out with a variety of partners. So that's all in the works. And then this last item, the district office space and NRCC office space. We had one district this year ask for capital funds for purchasing a district office. That did not get funded, but we have heard in the course of that process that there are a number of districts that are interested in office space. And so our intent between now and the next legislative session would be to consolidate that, everybody who's looking at office space, do you have a space in mind? How much would it be? Square footage needs, et cetera. Try to get some actual potential agreements or intent to sell sort of agreements in place to then bring to the legislature. I'm not sure how successful that process will be. It really depends very much on where districts are at in the process of buying a building. but we're going to try to be a little more organized around that for the next legislative session. So just to give you a heads up, I know I've reported on district need for office space here in the past. We're still working on it. And this is our next step. So any other questions? Okay, I'm sorry, I really dashed through those last couple of items. I'm getting the sense that everybody might be a little tired right now. Willie, is there anything else you'd like to cover today?
No, nothing else I'd like to cover. Thanks for being flexible and giving up most of that agenda. I think I appreciate everybody sticking with us on the action we took today. It's always feels successful when we do take action at these meetings, though it is somewhat disappointing to miss out on all the information that we were hoping to hear. So I encourage you all to read the reports section that we kind of cut out. And I know I'll try harder next week to make sure that we get to those, not next week, our next meeting, to make sure that we get to those parts of the meeting.
No worries. I will be sending around a poll, I think, at this point, to try to schedule another meeting towards the end of June. So be on the lookout for that. I want to make sure that we do have a quorum at that meeting. And I'll probably look out a little further and maybe try to schedule one for July as well. So be on the lookout for that.
Do we move to close this meeting, or how do we do that? So I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion from Linda. Any second?
I'll second.
Second from Kate. Any opposed? None opposed. The meeting is adjourned.